Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm Emanuel, I'm a Boeing 737 pilot and member of PMDG's tech team. So, we have talked a little bit about GSX in the past, and actually I've not been the only one who's had issues with GSX. So, somebody else who actually uninstalled it live on a stream is British AFGeek, and I've invited him to the channel. We are doing this one together today, so say hello.
Morning, hello, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Alright, so you, just like me, have uninstalled GSX. Well,
Yeah.
you've even done it live while I did it offline and just made a video about it afterwards. So, what did make you think that GSX was the cause of your issues? What did you make uninstall it?
Well, at the time, we know a lot different now, don't we? But at the time, we were facing quite a lot of crash to desktops. It seemed to be the case that having installed GSX and running it in the sim for a full flight, most people were suddenly reporting a lot of crash to desktops, and we experienced, I think, 3 during that live stream as well. And because of that, one of the working theories was GSX was causing the crashes. We then decided to just uninstall it live to see if it perhaps fixed the problem. I went through the stages of how to wipe all the traces of it from the system as well on the stream, and then booted back in, but found that we still got a crash, which left us a little bit confused. I've since reinstalled it as well, because we know very differently now, don't we?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because what appeared to have happened is that Asobo and Microsoft themselves ran into some server issues by the time approximately where GSX has been released. Now,
Yeah.
I've even got it a day earlier than the public release, so I've got it right at the evening where those problems started to happen. Now, I tend to say the typical flight sim customers may be doing a flight in the evening because they are just coming back from work and just want to relax a little bit. So, if you get a crash to desktop, then you're not necessarily thinking, oh, this is the big start of something happening. So,
No.
it was very easy for people to be led into believing that, alright, well, I've had a crash to desktop, but how does it matter? Happens every now and then, doesn't matter. But what actually happened then is the next day I kept getting plagued by crashes to desktop, and obviously, like anybody would be thinking who's involved with computer business, if you all of a sudden get crashes to desktop or you get a bad impact on your computer by something, then you are being led to believe, alright, what have I done last? And let me reverse that, and that should hopefully fix my problems. So
Exactly.
that was probably what you thought as well, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, the only significant change that I'd done onto the sim was install GSX. There'd been no Microsoft updates or anything else that could lead me to believe it could have been anything else at the time.
Yeah, it was exactly the same for me. So I then went ahead and uninstalled GSX, and I did 2 more flights that evening. And probably I've just been lucky on those flights because I did actually not have a crash to desktop. So that would pretty much, for me personally, be the confirmation that, alright, this was definitely GSX. I've installed it, I've got the crashes, I've uninstalled it, I didn't have any more crashes. So I guess you would probably have thought the same thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's that sort of, it reinforces the confirmation bias, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And then came the next day. But on that very evening, after the 2 successful flights, that was the point where I created my first video why I've uninstalled GSX. And I honestly have to say that that video got a lot of attention, and many people went mad about GSX below. Now, in the video itself, I pointed out quite a lot of bugs. And let's talk about bugs a little bit, because did GSX run perfectly well for you on your streams?
Not exactly, no. There seems to be a heavy reliance on the fact that all of the airports need some sort of custom imprint in place, which makes the ground equipment work properly. We identified some issues with the pushback as well, with the dispatcher moving to the wrong side of the aeroplane and things like that. Passengers boarding too quickly after crew that we would like to see improved. But otherwise, it's something that has a lot of promise for it, and it's certainly a welcome addition to the sim.
I absolutely have to agree with you on that one. For me as well, you might have seen it on my first look video already, because my first look video was pretty much exactly my first look.
Yeah.
So I installed GSX, I fired the sim up, and I started my camera. Because I wanted to show you GSX as unbiased as I possibly could. So if you have a look at my first look video, you're going to see that there are quite a couple of issues in there. But on that video I thought, alright, it's a version 1 release. Actually, the one I had back then was even a pre-release version,
Exactly.
which only got updated on the next day. So I thought, like, alright, these are just some minor issues. We can look over them, and overall, if GSX is doing what it's supposed to do, even though with a couple of minor graphical issues, that is surely not too bad. I mean, every add-on starts small somewhere, and we've surely seen it with the big add-ons like the Fenix A320 or the PMDG 737. They've all had their small issues when they started, so for me those small issues we saw there were kind of acceptable. What do you think?
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, on the video that I did for the preview, it turned out to be the day of release as well. We spoke about some of the bugs that we'd noticed with.
Bus is coming.
We noticed some of the bugs in relation to the way that the systems worked and the airport editor causing crash to desktops for me at the time. And on that video, I spoke about how it took me about 3 days in total to install it properly. I found it exceptionally difficult just to install it, and it was all down to my antivirus and my firewall still lingering, but it wasn't a smooth experience to begin with. But it's something that I really wanted to enjoy.
Yeah, pretty similar for me, especially having to configure in the beginning. When I did my first look, I was also surprised about all those jetways that all of a sudden spawned at Cologne Airport. And when I took that one on to Umberto, he replied that I would probably be using Cologne from the marketplace, which I didn't, however. So it turned out that GSX is not just install and use, but it is actually install, configure, and then start enjoying.
Yeah.
Alright, so things went on then and we started getting those crashes. And obviously for both of us, it was just the line of thought that, alright, we haven't changed everything, this has to be GSX. And that's how it happened that I did my why I uninstalled GSX video, because in the video itself I pointed out that GSX does have its issues, it has its bugs, it probably even has more bugs than I would personally have released it with, but that's up to FS Dream Team and not for me to decide. However, even with those bugs, it would still be a very good add-on for doing pushbacks, for getting follow me car, and for getting marshalling into the stand. Especially the latter one. On many of my live streams you can see me saying that when we're going in the stand, oh, no ground crew here again, nobody to marshal us in, no guidance system. So those 3 points alone would have made GSX a welcome addition for me. All the rest of it, like the boarding and stuff, well, while that's happening, I'm sitting in the flight deck anyway, and I'm busy with other stuff, so if the animations aren't perfect, you know, that happens. That is acceptable for me.
Yeah, it's something we discussed yesterday during the live stream. In a way, you don't really pay too much attention to the animations, because if you do, you pick out the flaws, the way that they're walking is a little bit odd and all that sort of thing, but you kind of use it to enhance the experience around the flight deck whilst you're prepping for your flight, and at that point it's very, very good. Like say with the marshallers being able to guide you in on stand, that's something that adds to the immersion really nicely, providing that the locations of the stands are set up correctly within GSX.
Yeah, exactly, and to be honest, that stuff is working kind of well, is it?
Yeah, it is, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you have to stop the airplane for the marshal to get in front of you, alright, but we can live with that. But the rest of it kind of works. For the pushback, alright, we need to talk about the ramp agent walking across the taxiway in front of you after the all-clear signal, but to be honest, that is something that can probably be fixed in a matter of minutes by Umberto, so that's nothing that would make me worry, or that would even make me recommend uninstalling GSX.
Yeah, but it's something that would be nice to be acknowledged. Perhaps for an update coming soon, we're going to be working on this. We know that some things need improvement.
Yes, exactly. So you're already talking about acknowledging, and that kind of leads us into the era of customer support, doesn't it? So
yeah.
Do you have any experience with the FS Dream Team support since the GSX release?
Only from what I've read in the forums. Prior to the release, like yourself, received a preview version of it. With the difficulties installing, I was emailing Umberto asking, I've done X, Y, and Z. It's still not working. I've uninstalled it. What else could I try? And in fairness, he was actually quite good at responding quite quickly at that point in time. But it was the build-up to the release. So there was a little bit more time, perhaps, to offer a one-to-one, having reached out to multiple different content creators. But I've noticed the experience has been a little bit different on the forums for people. I've had a lot of people complain that 2-3 days later they still haven't had their account approved and they're just trying to seek some support, which is not ideal.
Yeah, I've had the very same on my channel as well, especially below my why I've uninstalled GSX video. And keep in mind, I've released that one like 2 days after the initial release. And then I took to the forum as well because, as I said in the video, I sent Umberto emails, I didn't get answers, so I thought, alright, I should just start using the official support channels now, and I went to the forum as well. And when I got into the forum, that must have been like 2 days after release on the 20th, there were 10 pages with overall 1,400 posts in there, with people asking for support, and at the same time I thought, and there are still so many people on my channel saying they haven't been approved for the forum yet?
Yeah, they were completely inundated, weren't they?
I think so as well. I mean, as far as I know, FS Dream Team is basically a one-man show with Umberto running everything.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, and I can understand that it may be difficult to provide support, but when I actually went into the forums on the 20th to do research and to see if Umberto has said something about the crashes to desktop yet. And there basically wasn't a whole lot about it. And a day later, I went in there once again, so on the 21st, to see if he said something. And I was shocked to see that he wasn't online all day long. There hasn't been a single answer to customer support's requests in that time, like 2 or 3 days after the release. In my opinion, that's something that you should really think about, and that shouldn't happen like that.
Not for a customer support, no. I suppose on the day of release and the day after especially, I'd imagine, I've not released anything myself in the past, but I would imagine they're most likely the busiest days after a release of a product.
They most certainly are. A couple of years back, I worked in customer support for a flight simulation company, and with every big release, usually the product's been finished in the afternoon on one day, and then it would be released like the noon the next day to make sure that all the stuff is available and rested to help customers where issues occur. Yeah. Now, these things happened, and when I had my crashes to desktop, I started asking for help as well. And I posted that in his forums. Let me actually try to find that topic, because by now it's still not been answered. So we can see one topic I filed over here that's got a reply, but not from the developer, only from somebody else supporting my suggestions.
Yeah.
But that topic was not so important. In this one I'm listing several procedural things I'd like to see updated, so I can totally understand how he might take note of it and then just forget about it. And
suggestions for future improvements.
Exactly. Something that GSX will definitely need, but something that isn't urgent after release. But then there's this one, crashes to desktop, that I posted on August the 20th at 8 AM, and it's still unanswered by now. There is one topic where Umberto is actually answering on crashes to desktop. You can find that one here called CTDs, that's got 7 pages by now. And there are a couple posts he's making in there, like, first of all, he's saying nobody ever reported to CTD before, and the only thing that could possibly crash the sim is our very small WASM module, because all the rest runs externally. However, it's unlikely considered how little WASM modules can do. Now,
well, we know from previous, we've had WASM crashes in the sim in the past.
Exactly,
so
we have.
They can crash the sim, which, again, it kind of enforced, really, the initial suspicions that it could have something to do with the product.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going in here, we have another statement just below that, so it cannot crash the sim. And that's really going on. If I go a little bit further over here, then he's saying once again that, so while GSX per se cannot crash the sim. And to me that really looks like he's going defending here, and he's just saying, guys, my product cannot crash the sim, it's impossible. at a time where the crashes just happened and where everybody started to experience them. So to me, that really kind of makes it look like maybe he knows there's something going on and doesn't just want to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
So from there, at this point, then we have this post here on August the 19th, and then on the 20th, he just wasn't online at all. And that was basically the key time, if you ask me, where people started thinking GSX was causing CTDs. Well, in fact, as we know by now, it is actually Asobo causing them, and actually Microsoft. So in that time, he could really have prevented that rumor from spreading. Of course, which I'm not totally innocent about, because I thought so as well, and I made a video about it as well.
Yeah.
So overall, we can see, in my personal opinion, whenever you're posting something in the FS Dream Team forum, he's usually very much defensive, but not really in a way that he would try to actually find the problem. Like, there is one more that I would just quickly like to mention that I posted in here, after I actually installed GSX again. Because I told you on my very first video why I uninstalled it that if it turns out that GSX is not the cause of the crashes, then I would actually try to use it once again, because it just holds a very, very good potential. And in here, Umberto says as well, the manual refers with some explanations why the menu is lazy, but he then keeps on talking a little bit about why the menu does not actually pop up. But there is actually no reply in it to my actual question, where I've been saying, on my first flight, after I installed it again, it worked normally. On the second and third, it just didn't open at all. So, I think...
He's not really read your message, has he?
No, it doesn't look like it. And apparently that is something that I keep hearing every now and then in the flight simulation community, that he should improve a little bit on the customer support side, and then probably people just wouldn't see GSX as bad as all, because, to be perfectly honest with you, it definitely got its issues, but I don't think it is that bad of an add-on as it seems to many people at all at the moment, is it?
No, I would agree. Yesterday we reinstalled it during our live stream, and I actually enjoyed it for a little flight from Madrid to Malaga. We did boarding, we did deboarding at the other end, and it was really nice to be able to use it and see things like the follow me car and have that extra little bit of immersion. And it shows how good this product is at the moment, but how good it could be. It could be quite incredible if the procedural changes get put in place and perhaps the UI get cleaned up a little bit. One of the things that we discussed yesterday, it'd be quite nice to have a back page on the menu that pops up, because if you go across to the second page to have a look at your GSX settings, for example, you can't go back unless you turn it off in the UI drop down and then turn it back on again. The little things like that, little tweaks, which could quite significantly improve the user experience.
Yeah, I fully have to agree on that one. Going through the menus, everything doesn't seem to be 100% worked out yet. But then again, we are talking about a version 1.0 release. Even though we've, of course, had GSX already for the past 10 years in FSX and P3D. And it looks like the graphics have been redone very, very well. They are looking really good, I have to say. And the code itself, however, really seems to be mostly of the older GSX adapted to MSFS, but then with a couple of flaws creeping in every now and then.
Yeah.
So, overall then, what is your opinion going to be? Are you going to give GSX another try?
Absolutely. I'll be using it again today, and for the sort of future as well going forwards. I can't see a reason to uninstall it anymore, and we've certainly found now, and we could probably say with almost certainty, or at least very good confidence, that the problems with the significant amount of crash to desktops that a lot of the community are experiencing are linked to the Xbox gaming services or something along that side of the sim world feeding data into Microsoft Flight Simulator, which is it's a relief in a way, because we know it's nothing to do with GSX, even if it does have its flaws. But there are significant problems with the sim at the moment which need tackling, and it's an unfortunate consequence of bad timing in a way, that the product's released at the same time this online cloud service is broken.
Yeah, I absolutely have to agree. I couldn't have said it much better myself, actually, because that is exactly what I believe has happened. And I can only encourage everyone who has actually bought GSX and who's then uninstalled it, try to install it once again, try to do flights with it. As of the moment we are recording this, the actual crash to desktop issues have not yet been solved by Asobo themselves, but they have acknowledged in the forums that the team is going to work on it, and they have given it a pretty high priority and escalated it. So we can hope that there is going to be an improvement in the not so far future. And I can only recommend everyone install GSX again, try it once again. You are probably going to run into some issues with the boarding, issues with the baggage loading and stuff like that, especially if you haven't configured GSX yet. So that's the very first thing I would recommend always. If you are encountering issues, just try to configure it, see if there's anything you can change in the configuration. Of course, GSX definitely has its issues which will need addressing. However, in terms of the basic usability, I would say that we know now that it doesn't cause the crashes to desktop. So, at the very least, for pushing back, marshalling, and follow me's, it is definitely very good. And then we'll have to see how Umberto can improve things like the boarding, like the refueling, like the baggage loading, and so on. And of course, the overall animations. But I tend to say for 1.0 release, it is not as bad as we initially thought, is it?
No, absolutely not. They've committed to supporting it for around about 10 years from what we've read on the forums as well, which is something we can look forward to. We know the product will improve. In relation to the profiles and tweaking settings and things, there are already quite a lot of profiles that people have created within the community on flightsim.to to improve the way that the ground vehicles work on stands at different airports. So if you're watching this video and you want to improve certain airports, have a look there, because somebody might have already done it for you, save you the job. And just bear with it, stick with it. It offers an extra complexity to the immersion, and it will improve over time.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good word to actually close this video, because that's exactly what it's going to be. So, from now on, you are going to see me using GSX again as well. As I promised to you, if it wasn't for the crashes, then I would be using it. Now we know that it was actually not for the crashes, so I will be using it, and you are going to see me using it again on the live streams. So I'm looking forward to show you GSX. And once again, thank you very much for British Avgeek to actually coming to my channel and discussing it together with you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's always not. It's better sometimes to get both heads together, or people's heads together, and work out what's going on.
Yes, absolutely. You figured a couple of things out that I would never ever have thought of. And I'm really looking forward to see a couple of your next videos coming up and to see what you are going to do with GSX. So, really looking forward to that. You can be sure that I am going to recommend that on my channel as well. And all of that said, I think you've got to go start preparing for live stream now. So let's keep it at that. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching this. I hope that you have enjoyed it. I hope that you can now sort of understand how all the maths and the actual incorrect beliefs about GSX came up in the recent times. And if you want to support our channels, head over to British Avgeek, give him a like, subscribe if you haven't done so yet. And I'm hoping to see you all again on either of our channels in the future. So, thank you very much, and see you around.
See you soon.